Wow, have I got a treat for you today, because this is a treat for me as well. Right here, I have the Canyon Speedmax Track. And honestly, I can't wait to come and show you some of the shapes on this bike because it looks incredible up close. And because I've got it in my hands here, I am gonna weigh it in as well, although not so relevant for a track bike, just fun information to know. So coming close, we're gonna start at the top as we usually do. Of course, starting at the top here, I'm actually going to go with the elbow pads because they have this chopped carbon look and it's so cool. It just looks amazing. Obviously, with your elbows and those things, they're not going anywhere. The padding in here does actually have their logo on it as well, which looks amazing. And it seems like it might be quite slippy, but it's not actually. It's really grippy, this padding. It's nice, it's soft. I mean, I'd like my car seat to be made from that stuff. Then if we actually get onto the skis themselves, you can see that at the base here, they are a circular clamp on. So I assume you can adjust these here. If you want to take some of these out and slide the bars back, that will make these skis a little bit shorter. Being a bike of this price range, then they are actually like an aero shape to your forearm. So they're really nice here, shapes around your forearm, and they've got these lovely ergo grips on the front. They're quite nice to hold. They keep the hands really close together, and the angle of these are of course adjustable as well if you need them to be. Those skis attach onto this one piece here, which is of course aerodynamically shaped from the front. And that goes onto the stem, which of course is adjustable to your position. And to change all of that out, you've got to unbolt from the top here. Canyon being Canyon, they do have their Newton meter markings everywhere here, so you know just what to tighten everything up to. No second guessing on the bike. Then if we get to the base bar, super narrow, super skinny, and they have this lovely like piece to hold on there, which is teardrop shaped. And you're gonna see that theme all the way through. It's gonna be teardrops to the end here. Before I move any further, you can see that the seat tube here is nice and adjustable, which you might not get on some track bikes, but it is also that teardrop shaped. It's super skinny, super sharp on the back here. If I can try and get that on video, really sharp. I'm gonna get onto the frame a bit later. The next thing I wanted to show is just how narrow this bike is. I mean, it's a super skinny head tube here. It is teeny, teeny, tiny. And that goes same with the fork blades here. These are extremely narrow. But if you come to the side, they are fat, they are massive, so deep to keep the airflow attached to them. There is one thing I noticed on the front here though, and that is actually there's kind of a big gap here. I don't know if it's just this one that they've made, but that gap is kind of chunky. I think normally you'd see a bit closer of a gap there. For the parts that need to be wider, it starts to spread out at the top, and that continues over through the top tube here. And that of course goes with the fork as well. Because the fork is wider at the top, then it attaches that airflow to the bike and pulls it back in. So of course another teardrop shop with a very sharp back to it. One unique thing about the forks is, the front fork here especially, is actually they're kind of wider at the top and narrower as they go towards the bottom. It's really hard to show here on camera, but it looks like the legs are narrow at the bottom and wider at the top. Sticking with the front fork, you can just see how closely it actually hugs the disc wheel on the front of the bike there. It's really narrow, that gap. Such a small gap. The drive side of the fork here is actually different to this side, where it kind of has this like indent. I assume that's because the bolt is wider here and they're trying to cover and direct more airflow through the through axle or over the through axle. That teardrop shop does continue from the top here, so it's wider at the front and it gets narrower as you go towards the back of the bike. The airflow will run over the seat post clamp there, and then let's be honest, it gets to the most interesting part of this bike, which is the bum end of it. And you can see just how cool that fork is. I mean, I imagine this catches a lot of airflow that comes off the back of the rider. On TV, I thought this was actually wider on TV than it is in real life. So there's obviously lots of space, so it doesn't interrupt the airflow between the wheel, but it's not like the Lotus bike where it's super wide, it's just normal width there. But there's no denying just how deep this tube is. I mean, it's so deep, it's really cool. I'm just gonna try and get you in for a closer look at the shapes there. It's quite amazing really. I mean, we haven't seen a bike this different for a while, not since the Hope Lotus bike. I don't know what to call it, so I think I'm just going to call it the Shelf. Then a seat tube, it's much of the same story. It's your classic teardrop knacker shape profile, so wider and blunter at the front here. And as we get to the back, it's super sharp as it tries to tail that air over here. Once again, for the down tube, it's much of the same story. It has this nice close hug to the wheel here, and then it has that teardrop shape coming off the front, and it is super narrow towards the back here, really, really sharp on the back. If you follow that down, you then have this nice covered in space. I don't know if that's there for rigidity, but that follows on and into the seat tube. And then you have this lovely clean shape going into the wheel here. As we stay low down and stick to the rear triangle, interestingly, the base of the rear triangle gets really wide here. So it's actually like a triangle shape here to keep this part hugging close to the wheel, and it hugs it literally perfectly. This is both for the non-drive side, and it happens on the drive side as well, so it really closely hugs the wheel and then cuts off there. And I assume maybe that affects the chain a little bit of aerodynamics around there. Then here are your rear wheel slots. If you need some adjustability for chain tension, you've got it right there, and it just goes in like a normal through axle on a track bike. If we get to the paint job is very Canyon, so matte black for the most of it on this bike. Of course, contrasted with their white decals and logos all over the bike. But then on this bike, we have this nice like gloss, I don't know, kind of like a rainbow iridescent, if I can get it in focus here. Yeah, it's quite cool. And generally that comes with their sharp lines over the paint job. Finally, for the frame, we can get onto the wheels. So the wheels are designed with Swiss side, which are DT Swiss's in-house aerodynamics. And wow, they look cool. They kind of have this kind of squared off pattern, but actually this is smooth. It's not that kind of hexagon shape that it looks like, it's smooth between these movements. That is also contrasted with their CFR logos on the wheels themselves. The front wheel is the same shape on both sides, the rear wheel is not. As you can see, there's no cover here, so they have to tape up where the valve is for the inner tubes. If you want to see what it looks like without the tape, then you've got your space in there to pump up your tubes. Interestingly, for the disc wheel, it kind of has this extra like rim around here that looks almost like a rim brake disc braking track, but I can assure you it's not. This is matte and that's gloss. I don't know why, but on the front wheel, it's all matte all the way to the edge. I actually think I now know what this extra bit here is. So I think it's like a secondary add-on, which brings the edge of the wheel closer to the tire. So you can see how much of a lip there is. So I think it probably keeps airflow attached a little bit closer, if I had to guess. The disc wheel is asymmetrical, so you can see on the drive side here, it's pancake flat all the way through. And then on the non-drive side, it actually bulges outwards. And I'll see if I can get a better angle of that for you there. Can you see the way that it bulges out? Then sticking with the wheels, these come fitted with the GP5000 STRs, so very, very fast tire. They look like 23s on this wheel, but they're not. They're actually a 25mm tire. I think it's just the internal width of the wheel is super narrow, so it brings down the width of the tire itself. On the back here, the area where the seat tube hugs the wheel is like this D shape. So I think that just keeps the airflow attached to the wheel better. Pretty much every aero bike that you see out there has this kind of design where it hugs in deeper here. Well, that brings us onto the drive of the bike, and it does come with the Wahoo SpeedPlate aero pedals. So very cool, just an extra little bit of aerodynamics, and it has that golf ball texture to keep airflow attached. But on the main feature itself, we have this whopper 60-tooth chainring, and the little detail for that hides just behind here. I never would have found that if someone didn't show me. But the 60-tooth chainring Capstein, or is it Capstein? German friends, I need you to help me out there, with a power meter as well. So, and it looks like you can charge it up here. Conveniently for me, the light has just come on here, and you can actually see it's actually kind of red in there. It's not all black, it's not like a matte black, there's actually some red. I don't know why this is. If you know in the comments, please fill me in. The next interesting feature about this is, of course, that aerodynamically it fits the chain better. So you can see there's this lip here, and it keeps the chain, or the width of the chain, in line with the width of the chain ring. If we look on the other side here, you can see more of that redness, and you can see it's obviously a bit more reinforced with this strutting around here. Then I guess that chain ring is also replaceable if you want to take these bolts out as well, and you can take it off the power meter. I think because it's the TT version, I'll set up in the TT version, it comes with a 170mm length crank. And the cranks look super strong and super robust. I'd imagine for some of the power that these guys push on this bike, you need that. Well, let's not mess around anymore because I'm gonna weigh this thing in, and it does come weighed in with pedals as well. I've got like the ropiest suitcase scales on this £19,000 bike. Wow, not bad, you know, for a super aero bike. We have 8.39 kilograms here. A few more interesting things about this bike. So it's the same bike if you want the normal drop handlebars for other types of races, but you do have to swap out the whole fork. So you've got to change the fork for those drop handlebars. And of course, you've got to change this top piece as well. And you can't race with the full fairing when you've got those drop bars on. So you'll need to buy a tri-spoke. So for the fork and the handlebars, I think that's like £1,400. And then of course you need to buy the front wheel on top of that. So it's a lot of money to do different things with this bike. And speaking of money, this thing comes in at a whopping £19,000 or 1,899.99. That's a lot of money, but this thing is very, very cool. I'm so glad I got to share this with you today. If you have any further questions, put them in the comments below, or you can message me on Instagram here. I will do my absolute best to answer them to the best of my ability. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up for me so it can find some more people. I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. What a cool video I've got to film today. I'll catch you in the next one.